Notre Dame put on an absolute clinic last night in South Bend, Indiana. Domination over USC in a rivalry game. Final score 48-20. Notre Dame now getting up off the mat after taking an L the week before at Louisville and getting back in the win column. That was our question, was how would Notre Dame respond? Where's the emotional gas tank at? Looks like it was full enough last night to take care of business in the way that they took care of business. Again, absolutely handling USC. We'll talk about it right now. We'll break down that game and what we think about Notre Dame going forward. Before we do that, though, make sure you subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. We've had a lot of y'all from Notre Dame subscribe to this whole program. We appreciate y'all for that. Also, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JD Paquel to stay with everything that we got going on over here, and we appreciate you so much in advance for doing that. So, going back to this whole situation with Notre Dame, man, everyone's question was how are they going to respond? Because the stretch of games they had, man, like they went through the gauntlet. Preseason, you're looking at the schedule, you say, okay, you play Ohio State, but hey, good news is you get Duke after that. Kind of get your bearings, and then after that you get Louisville. Get your footing after that hard game against Ohio State, get ready for USC. Well, as it turned out, Duke and Louisville in season both turned out to be pretty good football teams. Came down to the final play against Ohio State, final play against Duke. Out of gas, it looked like at Louisville. And so we're all asking, after a loss, after you catch your second L of the season, the college football playoff looks unlikely to say the least. How does this team show up against a really good USC offense, against a really talented USC roster? And they just absolutely beat the brakes off of them. And in this game specifically, what I loved so much about this team and the way they approached this game, there was no trace of any passivity from this Notre Dame football team. Defensively, they got after Caleb Williams. Sometimes you play great players, especially great quarterbacks that are dual threat, and you say, okay, we just got to keep it all in front of us. Got to box them in. Got to try and put a fence around Caleb Williams. Instead, they got after him, and it resulted in turnovers. Caleb Williams had 3 interceptions. Just about every single one of those, he was pressured or had somebody in his face, and he had to throw the football when it didn't look like he really wanted to throw the football. It was back across his body. Someone was chasing him. You forced him into making mistakes. You don't get to force someone into making mistakes if you're trying to play, oh, let's keep it all in front of us. Let's play passive. That wasn't Notre Dame last night. They got after it. And they had a fire. They had an aggression. And that showed itself on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, like when you score on defense and on special teams, it doesn't necessarily require you to have a huge day at the office. But even so, they went right at USC. And they did what I think a lot of us expected them to do when it came to moving the line of scrimmage against that Trojan defense. USC, they got their own problems on the defensive side of the football. We didn't get as much exposure to those last night as a college football public because of how many times USC gave the football away and how many times Notre Dame scored in other facets. But I'm just saying, man, like everything about Notre Dame last night, in my mind, I think what we thought before them going into the Ohio State game, we validated a lot of those thoughts in that game last night. Even before the Louisville game, like we thought Notre Dame was physical, thought Sam Hartman was a pretty good quarterback, thought they played some pretty good defense by nature of how they showed up against Ohio State, holding them to 17 points. And then after the Louisville game, everyone's like, well, is that really who Notre Dame is? Did Notre Dame just kind of have some good performances and maybe we didn't have them figured out just yet? How good is Duke? How good is Ohio State? Louisville kind of did what they wanted against them. I think we can all take a step back and say, no. What we thought going into those games about Notre Dame is still true coming out of that game against USC. And the thing that I'm curious about now with Notre Dame is like how good can they be under Marcus Freeman? I'm not just talking about this year. Like the rest of their schedule, they're going to play Clemson, and they still have some other games that'll be interesting the rest of the way for them. But like even past this season, what we saw last night from Notre Dame was a tremendous response and tremendous buy-in. And I think those kind of go hand in hand, but response and buy-in, you don't get those two things without good leadership. Like what we saw in that game last night, the way that team played hard against USC, yes, it was a rivalry game. You probably don't have to get too fired up for that kind of situation, but the leadership of Marcus Freeman, where he preached to his team during the week saying we can't let one loss affect us and turn into another loss. We got to be an anti-fragile program. I'm assuming he said program, maybe program, but I bet it was program if I know Marcus Freeman. And I think like that really is, I think, what it comes down to if you're Notre Dame. You have someone you believe in. You have someone who is going to bolster this thing to new heights. And I was talking with Mike Singer from blueandgold.com, and we got to chatting about just like, okay, let's say they do run the table. Let's say they go 10-2, you play for a New Year's Six bowl and you win that, or at least even just playing for that. Just stop right there. Forget winning the New Year's Six bowl. You just play for a New Year's Six bowl. How much gasoline does that pour onto the fire that is Notre Dame recruiting at that point in time? Like, we've seen Marcus Freeman, he can recruit. People want to come and play for him. He's made Notre Dame cool again, in my humble opinion, with the way that he sort of re-energized that brand. I think Notre Dame has their head coach for a long time in Marcus Freeman. I think they have a style of football that they're going to be successful at for a long time. There's other question marks down the road. We'll talk about those when they get there. We'll talk about the quarterback position when it's time to address that. But like, I'm just saying, from a macro level, I think you got to feel really, really good about who's running the show for Notre Dame. Because what we saw last night, that was a team that could have packed it in. That was a team where you could have said, hey, Sam Hartman's just here to look good for scouts now. Hey, we already lost 2 games, and Sam Hartman was here to win a college football playoff game, and that's not on the table now. Like, hey, guys, everybody just kind of do what they want to do now. If you don't have good leadership, that's what was potentially going to happen. But this Notre Dame roster, this Notre Dame coaching staff, led by Marcus Freeman, said, nope, we still got a lot to play for. We still have a tremendous amount of pride in who we are and what we do. And they handle business. So again, Notre Dame doing what they did against USC. I'm excited to see how they finish the season. I'm excited to see how they respond after a game like this. And Notre Dame, for years to come, as long as Marcus Freeman's calling the shots, I think they're headed the right direction. Make sure you're subscribed. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JDPikel. We appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.